start.
Okay, let's start. Good afternoon. And a very warm...
Not yet. You stay there. Yes.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome on behalf of the NTG Skills Alliance. My name is Lopke Elbers and I'm delighted to being your host and your moderator of the panel today for our plenary sessions and later on the discussion that we will have with a lot of industry representatives. We appreciate the delegates that join us from the whole wide world in different time zones, and it will be nice to hear where you all are from. So don't hesitate to be active in the chat and to share the location where you are from. A couple of housekeeping points before we start. The language. All our speakers will be talking in English. The Twitter hashtag for this event is #PactForSkillsTourism. Please do use it to share with the outside world what you are hearing here. Let's get that future of upskilling, reskilling, and skills development in tourism out in the whole wide world. I'll tell you more about the program later on and what we're going to be doing, but it is my pleasure to give the word to Sylvia Barbona as the next Tourism Generation Product Ideator. Sylvia, great to have you here. Let's get over to you. It is my pleasure to give the word to Sylvia Barbona as the next Tourism Generation Product Ideator. Sylvia, great to have you here. Let's get over to you.
Thank you very much, Lobke, for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. I'm sorry if there is some delay, maybe in the connection. I'm not sure.
So... It is my pleasure to give the word to Sylvia Barbona as the next Tourism Generation Product Ideator.
I still can hear the recording.
Sylvia, great to have you here. Let's get over to you. Sylvia, can you maybe log out of the YouTube live stream?
Welcome, everyone. I'm sorry if there is some delay, maybe in the connection. I'm not sure.
So...
I still can hear the recording.
Sylvia, can you maybe log out of the YouTube live stream?
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry if there is some delay, maybe in the connection. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, sorry, because you're right, sorry. Hello, everyone, thank you very much. Thank you, Lobke, for the introduction. And I'm very pleased to introduce this webinar today for the Next Tourism Generation Alliance project. It was created 2 years ago with a very innovative and transformative concept to create the first European alliance to transform the cooperation around the topic of skills for the tourism industry. Now we are in a new moment, we are in a new phase, let's say, due of course to the situation, but the European Commission has shown one more time how important the skills are, as so skills are still prioritized again. And we are very pleased to transform, actually, to refresh our project in a way that will be in line with the new Pact for Skills. Next Tourism Generation has been created around a key concept, which is a strong alliance between the industry and the public sector. This alliance really needs to be strategic, but at the same time, very operational. So it's very important, as this is a webinar, but we also hope that is the starting point for a stronger cooperation also with the actors that today are part of the roundtable and also the participants, because it's more important than ever that the project will be not only supported, but will be the project aim to be in the next during the next year more than ever delivered with your support, with your participation. There are different. My colleagues are going to explain how. So the participation, your participation, will be really very not only very appreciated, but can be the difference. The project itself as just to remind and to give some more boundaries, the Next Tourism Generation Alliance project has been designed to tackle the skills development and around for 5 different sectors: accommodation, food and beverage, travel agencies, tour operators, destination management, and visitor attraction. We know that the tourism value chain is very big. So to start with, we define these 5, we address these 5 initial subsectors with the objective to create this transformative model for cooperation. So we are also selecting different case studies and developing different tools to be used, to be piloted, and to again, as I was saying, to have the industry with us, with the educational centers, with the research centers, together with the public authorities under the European Commission umbrella is the way forward for the tourism sector and the skills alliances. So the objective is really, hopefully, to, as I was saying, to deliver something strategic, but operational at the same time, and establishing some of the ecosystem for tourist development starting from skills. So I give the floor back to you, Lobke. Thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce this webinar.
Thank you very much, Sylvia, for underlining the importance of the Next Tourism Generation project and the official word of welcome on behalf of the Next Tourism Generation Alliance. So as part of this, we're going to be asking you, the audience, each time we hear about the key topics, what is going on during this webinar, to share as well your key action points on the key topics of today, which are, as you know, the transformation and upskilling and reskilling in tourism, skills gaps and future needs skills development, training needs and collaboration. Let me tell you a little bit more about what is going to happen during this webinar. So today we have 3 short speeches that will report back on the topic of skills development in tourism. And we will have a panel where we discuss the topic of those speeches more in depth. We consider challenges and opportunities ahead for the tourism sector in the light of skills development, green, digital, and social skills. We look at the needs to meet those challenges on the short and the long term, and we will consider that broader vision of the future. What should skills development of tomorrow look like? And then we try to determine what does all of this means for the European agenda, for the Pact for Skills and tourism in, let's say, 10 to 20 years, but also more on the short term to support a sustainable recovery and to prepare for the tourism of tomorrow. Now, I'm delighted to inform you that Ovidio Ene has joined us during this webinar. Ovidio is Policy Officer at the European Commission, the DG Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SME Tourism. I want to invite you as our first speaker. Ovidio, a very warm welcome to you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me, and thank you for organizing this webinar and for giving me the opportunity to give an overview about what is this Pact for Skills initiative. I will try now to share a few slides in order to give an illustration of the main objectives and components of the Pact for Skills. 1 second. And the slideshow. Now I think it is visible, yes? Can you confirm?
Yes, perfectly.
All right. Please let me just, for the beginning, to start with a few words about the context of how this, of why this Pact for Skills was proposed by the European Commission. We know that the magnitude of the skills challenge needs stronger cooperation and partnerships at all levels. Endowing people with the right skills is paramount for the present and the future economic outlook in the context of the green and digital transitions, but also for the recovery after this pandemic. Besides, the first principle of the European Pillar of Social Rights states the right of all to education and training and lifelong learning, and this is a high priority initiative for the European Union. For that reason, the new European Skills Agenda, adopted in July, proposed the Pact for Skills in support of the European Industrial Strategy. And the Pact was launched by the Commissioners Schmidt and Breton in Berlin on 10th of November in a partnership with the German presidency of the Council. Moreover, upskilling and reskilling is one of the priorities under the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which makes available the budget of 670 billion euros in loans and grants to support reforms and investments undertaken by the member states. So countries will have to prepare, and they are now in this process of preparing recovery and resilience plans that set out a package of reforms and in public investments projects. And to benefit from the support of this facility, these reforms and investments should be implemented by 2026. So one of these 7 priorities under the facilities is referring to reskilling and upskilling. In order to prepare member states and to help member states with preparing these plans, the Commission proposed these 7 areas. And moreover, the Commission provides the guidance in the way of examples of reforms and actions which could be supported, including providing, in the field of reskilling and upskilling. And in this guidance, the concept of the Pact for Skills is clearly stated out. So just to give an example of what should be this support, these reforms in the area of skilling. For instance, it will be the creation of the legal framework for entitlements for labor market relevant training in the form of individual learning accounts, new legal frameworks for vocational education training, aiming at updating VET provision to support digital and green transitions, or the development of national program of apprenticeships in ICT, including in the SME. And here, I wanted also to give the direct link to these materials, which are important background materials that could be followed by those stakeholders, those public authorities that will engage into developing actions under upskilling and reskilling. Now, a few words about the partnership that should be created under the Pact for Skills. So the Pact for Skills promotes joint actions to maximize the impact of investments in improving existing skills, that is upskilling part, and training of new skills, that is reskilling. So it calls for industry, employers, social partners, public authorities, education and training providers, and employment agencies to work together and to make clear commitments to invest in training for all working age people across the Union. And since it is mainly about training of people from the private sector, from the industry, companies have to play a key role, and they are called to share their resources and experience in training staff. Public authorities are also called to streamline the Pact into their employment and skills policies, and to give support by using the existing infrastructures, the existing collaborations as vehicles for the implementation of the Pact. To ensure a common understanding of what is quality upskilling and reskilling, members of the Pact are also asked to sign up to a charter which contains a series of key principles, and the commitments under the Pact must be in line with these principles and build around a number of performance indicators that are needed to monitor the actions implemented. To ensure that the Pact is co-created with the relevant stakeholders, Commissioners Breton and Schmidt already kicked off this autumn a series of high-level roundtables with representatives of industrial ecosystems, social partners, and vet providers. What will be the Commission support? So the Commission will support the members of the Pact through 3 hubs. A networking hub that includes, for instance, links to existing EU tools like Europass, Skills Panorama, the network of public employment services, will support the members in finding the partners and will ensure the promotion of the activities and implicitly of those participating entities. A knowledge hub will include webinars, seminars, updates on the EU policies and instruments, and the toolkit of those instruments and best practices that will be helpful to roll out the actions under the Pact. And also very important, guidance and resource hub, which is mainly about giving access to funding and guidance to identify the financial possibilities and to also to facilitate the exchange between the members of the Pact and the national and regional authorities. So about funding, of course, this is a very important aspect for everybody willing to join such an action. As I said, there is the funding under Recovery and Resilience Facility, but also there are other funding that could be utilized in financing this action. So if I have just to mention REACT-EU, that is can be accessed to mitigate negative impact of coronavirus crisis, the structural and investment funds that could be used for the development of skills and to adapt employees and companies to the changes in the labor market, but also to help upskilling and reskilling unemployed people, and of course, European Regional Development Fund for supporting industrial transformation and smart specialization. There's also Just Transition Fund that can be utilized for reskilling of workers in regions affected by the economic environment transition. InvestEU, which also is available for social investment, and it has a skills window that could contribute to unlock investment in skills. Now, with regard to implementation of the Pact for Skills in Tourism, it is a big need for an ambitious up and reskilling strategy in order to keep jobs at the short term in the sector and for the sustainable recovery and the much needed green and digital transition. This is one of the key messages that also emerged during the European Tourist Convention that was organized in October. And in this context, Commissioners Breton and Schmidt hosted on 29th of October the roundtable on the Pact for Skills in Tourism, which gathered senior representatives from the industry, from big and small enterprises, and other relevant stakeholders. The objective was to learn about the interest and provide the top-level political momentum to the development of the partnerships and thus to lay the ground for a pact on skills in tourism. So just to reveal a bit of what was discussed during the meeting, there was a general agreement that Europe's tourism is facing unprecedented hardship, and businesses' survival, of course, was the main concern. But this situation only intensifies the major structural challenges linked to the competitiveness of the tourist businesses, adoption of the digital tools, difficulty to find appropriate staff, and the image of a sector that does not offer very attractive work conditions. So if this crisis acts like an accelerator for the needed transformation, the idleness of the activity during this period of time can be used to lay the ground for upgrading and reshaping the tourism ecosystem and its workforce. So we are now considering the next steps, also in collaboration with the next country holding the presidency of the Council, with Portugal, for the appropriate approach, given the particularities of the European tourism ecosystem. We all know an ecosystem where 99% are small and medium-sized enterprises, and the majority of these are micro enterprises. So 2 million micro enterprises and small enterprises acting on diverse markets and within usually short value chains. So these specificities are important to be taken into account in shaping the collaborations and the upskilling and reskilling workforce. And in order to adapt the partnerships to different countries and regions, we also count on the commitment of existing organizations and alliances that are working in the area of skills. So to sum up, the Pact for Skills is about encouraging stakeholders, member states, regions to work together to upscale the best practices and increase investment in upskilling and reskilling impactful actions. Building such partnerships in a whole ecosystem and diverse like the tourism ecosystem is a significant undertaking, and it will take time, but we need to have to start from somewhere and define clear goals and commitments and the time frame. Thank you very much, and we are looking forward to your participation to this important initiative. You have here also the link to a form where you can already express your interest in participating to the Pact for Skills, so that we at the Commission can have an overview about that community that could engage into this initiative. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Ovidiu, for outlining the steps and initiatives that the Commission has been taking in this area and in this vital sector of tourism. And also thanks so much for putting the possibility and setting the link open for interested participants who like to be a partner in this Pact for Skills to promote the lifelong learning and to continue with constructing a clear vision of the future for tourism. Now I want to turn to Professor David Parsons, who is visiting professor of the School of Events, Tourism and Hospitality Management at Leeds Beckett University, and an independent consultant with a very long career in labor market policy research and skills foresight and program evaluation. He has conducted many studies for governmental bodies, the European Commission and others. And he is currently an expert to OECD's Tourism Committee, leading a study of preparing the tourism workforce for the digital future. Now, David, could you give us a broad perspective on the digital transformation and skills needs in tourism? I would like to welcome you, David.
Thanks very much. I trust you can hear me and presumably see me. And thanks for the introduction. I'm going to go straight into the share screen just to make sure we're going to be okay on that.
Ovidio, you have to stop share screen, please.
Right. Have we got the shared screen now? If somebody could perhaps nod and say as much, Luca?
Yes, we are.
You've got it. Excellent. In that case, I shall fire away. I'll try and keep this moderately brief. Yes, indeed, this is work that's conducted for OECD. OECD came to me a short while ago, and I'm leading a small team from the university to pull this together. I think it's quite an interesting, although less long run, complementary piece to the work that the Alliance is certainly conducting. I regard this as more top down, an umbrella picture rather than, I think, a fairly forensic view that the Alliance has been producing in terms of the skills dimension. And our focus is very much on digitalization, but a very broad spectrum of digitalization. I mean, basically, we're trying to cover pretty much everything that falls within that camp, from sort of AI, blockchain, mobile robotics, right down to fairly routine aspects of e-commerce and client relationships. To tell you a little bit about the background and what we are actually focusing on, we're not through with the work yet. This is very much well-developed preliminary findings. Our first draft of what OECD refers to as their analytical report went to the 43-country odd OECD Tourism Committee in mid-October. We're still getting some feedback from that. A second draft is now in preparation. And the focus was on yes, the impact of digital technologies, digitalization on the nature of tourism work. So our focus very much is not about what's happening on digitalization, but what's happening as a result of digitalization, what's likely to happen as a result of digitalization on work organization, and crucially, skills. So the second component being the skills needed to adapt to what's happening, in particular within the COVID-19, the post-COVID environment. Clearly, COVID has knocked the sector sideways and upside down in terms of its capacity and viability in many cases. The emerging picture is still unclear, but OECD is clearly of the view that digitalization will provide both a massive opportunity for recovery and resilience building, but also probably a necessity. Our view would be that firms that are perhaps lagging in digitalization and uptake, perhaps due to a skills dimension of that, may well end up surviving COVID, but falling foul of the competitive pressures if they lag behind on digitalization. So it's obviously a very important and current issue. The final strand that we're looking at is not just to say what's happening, but also what's happening as a result of some of those challenges, the current policy responses. We are not looking at organization level policy responses, what individual employers are doing. That would be well beyond the brief of what this top-down view would be. We are focusing very largely on the public policy responses, but also those that will be led from the sort of collaborative professional bodies, industry groupings within individual countries as well. And I can say something about each of those main threads. Just a reminder in terms of what we've been doing, obviously the focus is on travel and tourism. Massive problems, we're all well aware of how well we define that, and even more massive problems about getting data from it. Data tends to be reasonably rich in terms of cross-national comparisons for accommodation and food service, and pretty poor outside of that, mainly because of the classification systems that are used for international industry data, occupational data not being much better. Recognizing that, we did conduct, or OECD conducted, a survey of its member and partner countries. and that was going to lead contacts in each of those countries. This is not sending out 200 questionnaires or 2,000 questionnaires to each of a large number of countries. It was going to lead contacts who were then engaging with their own stakeholders to come up with a picture across a number of preset areas. We've had 33 country returns to date, which is pretty loosely a 75% response rate, which I'm told by OECD is really rather a healthy response rate. It's taken some time to get it, but we're getting there. We've also drawn together available evidence, cross-national, national, and sub-national on policy responses. The survey helped on that. We've also conducted a large amount of literature, largely grey literature reviews in this territory, some academic literature work as well. And eventually we will have produced, we have got the first draft report produced, the second draft is going to be produced very shortly, and there will be a final draft of the analytical report, which will then be published. I'll give you some timing for that a little bit later. There's going to be an important focus for this in coming together on the 28th of January, which is a policy workshop organised jointly between OECD and the Commission and hosted by Switzerland. It's now going to be a virtual workshop, inevitably, where we're going to be very much focusing on that policy angle. Final details of that are now being sorted by OECD, but it does provide an important, I think, forum for key stakeholders to start reviewing some of this evidence. In terms of what we found, picking up on the first thread, what's happening on digitalization, I very much doubt any of this is going to come as a great surprise to you, and it is very much a synthesis of what we've found. Crucially, pre-pandemic, obviously tourism and travel is an incredibly diverse sector, interconnected but highly diverse. And across that, there was very uneven digitalization uptake, strong in some areas, depending on how you classify strong, pretty weak in others. Everywhere it was a disruptive technology, which can be seen both negatively and positively. That's the nature of it. And one that's transformative of business practice across a wide range of operations and interrelationships and across value chains. But an important but, the evidence so strongly indicated across the countries that SMEs are generally lagging in uptake. And for a sector as important as a vital part of the DNA of tourism as SMEs, and in particular smaller SMEs, this is obviously an area of pretty deep concern. This was a pre-pandemic picture, quite important to recognise that, although we were picking up some evidence of early adjustments. We obviously have to recognise the backcloth that tourism has been kicked sideways by COVID-19. Currently, UNWTO is estimating something like 110 million job losses, probably, and rising. But a quite important feature to this is that the survival of firms due to, in many cases, an intermittent, in inverted commas, recovery, which is very far from, well, I was about to say yet completed, arguably yet started. It's clear that digitalization and sometimes rapid aspects of digitalization, particularly around laggards in e-commerce, has started to positively aid lockdown or lockdowns recovery. That's quite an important issue as an agent of change, therefore. So the impacts of COVID may not be wholly negative from that point of view. From the digitalization perspective. Impacts from, again, remember our focus here not on the technology, but on work organization. The impacts that we were able to see, and one has to recognize that the very diverse practice across the different countries, but were generally within existing job structures. We tend to think of any aspect of advanced technology, new technologies, and particularly where it's being disruptive, as wiping out certain levels and cadres of jobs. That has not been the case, or not significantly the case, in travel and tourism. Changes where they've occurred so far as a result of digitalization have been within existing job structures. In other words, the job titles may often remain the same, the skills mix within it may be different. So that's quite an important issue. But, and I'm probably adding a lot of riders on buts here, there would be intensifying effects of digitalization, particularly for those jobs that are routine in their nature, codifiable in their potential, and generally at low and middle level jobs in terms of the work structure. The middle level jobs there could be quite important. Up to now, digitalization effects have been predominantly around the lower skills spectrum. It's quite clear with emerging technologies in digitalization, that's going to creep up the occupational order. Some new job types are coming about, but more different changed skill mixes within existing jobs seems to be a far more common consequence. And a last point I want to share on this is that there's a big issue around robotics, particularly mobile robotics, but also stationary as well. In terms of the effect, clearly the potential for robotics in many areas of tourism is pretty gigantic. I mean, different estimates are around there. Some would suggest 17 to 18% high levels or risk of displacement, and possibly up to nearly a half of jobs at some risk of displacement. So considerable job loss risk. The issue is to what extent it's going to come about, either due to decisions within organizations or to technology lag. So there's a very big question mark over that area in terms of the effects of robotics. In terms of the skill issues, I'll run through this one very quickly, but we've bundled these together more or less into 4 areas. There's the job substitution issue. Yes, the question mark around displacement within robotics, but also that being set against guest acceptance. It is a personal service industry by and large. And to what extent, it's not going to be a question of just organizational potential. It's going to be a question of guest acceptance. So some pretty major question marks in that area. Skill shortages, hardly new to the sector, but they are changing. And if they are going to be substantive in digitalization, then they will certainly impede transformation of firms. And they may be particularly acute for SMEs, particularly where those SMEs are already lagging in digital app uptake. New skill mix is emerging, as I've already touched on, and a lot more jobs needing significant levels of digital fluency. Big question marks remain around what we mean by digital fluency, and it's going to be quite diverse across the sector. Again, that's something the Alliance will be producing a lot of evidence on, but also the need to combine those with strong cognitive skills for the potential of the digital tools and systems to be realized for firms. And that's going to lead to a widening skill gaps, partly due to that combination of fluency and complementary skills. And a crucial one, because if the impacts are going to be of rising needs for digital fluency, rising needs for complementary skills amongst lower and low to mid-skill jobs, they're already areas of the labour market where tourism has a very, very long history of competing poorly. So this could actually ratchet up the skill challenges that the sector already has in its competitiveness in the labour market. That seems to me to be a pretty major concern. Last but not least in that area, managers seem to be crucial in this, not just in their own levels of digital competence and knowledge and awareness, but in their ability to mobilize change. So really quite crucial in this territory. Moving on, in terms of policy issues, this is sort of drawing together these threads. We've got 8 areas at the moment where we're working on recommendations. One's around the foresight area. The data we've been able to draw on in terms of what is the skills picture likely to look like is very weak indeed, partly due to the classification issues we've been talking about, but also a lot of other factors. So clearly policy actions in that territory are going to be crucial to enable employers, providers, and indeed individuals to be able to start to adjust and look at consequences. Integration, I think, is clearly important here. We've identified quite a large number of policy responses, over 50 plus, in this particular territory across different countries. Although substantial legs, about 1/3 of the countries we looked at had no policy adjustments at all in this territory. But where those policy adjustments existed, they were pretty fragmented. In other words, they focused on perhaps digital awareness raising, or they focused maybe on some aspects of skills uplift, or they perhaps focused on some aspect of cooperation between firms. Effective adjustment on digitalization is likely to require an integrated response across those areas: awareness, uptake, and stronger CVET, IVET capability. Training, particularly in terms of work-related adjustment, clearly going to be important. Handling how well the existing workforce, those that remain or are retained after COVID, is clearly going to be crucial to adjustment. And also there's pretty strong evidence that where policies exist, their effectiveness amongst SMEs or their take-up amongst SMEs is lagging and lagging substantially. So clearly effectiveness of reaching SMEs of any policy response is going to be rather important. Moving on to the other policy issues, collaboration will be important, not just between like firms, pre-competitive collaboration on some issues around uptake, for example, and adjustment, but also in value chains themselves. And we also would be suggesting that there's some scope for resilience building if there's a mechanism in probably at national levels to be able to promote what we regard as pathfinders, digitalization pathfinders linked into COVID recovery and resilience building. We're still working on that particular area in terms of what it might look like. Clearly support, there will be casualties of digitalization in the sector. So the sort of in particular public employment services and others will be crucial in terms of the support mechanisms. And last but not least, if these changes are to be sustained, then clearly investments are going to be necessary, parallel investments in CVET to be able to support wider adult learning on adjustment. In terms of where we're at, second draft being worked on should be around middle of January. That will be going to the policy forum that we mentioned there on the 28th. Final report probably around about the middle of April, and that will be published shortly after. Anything else I think I'll probably best pick up on questioning. That's giving you a very quick skit through. Remember, this is ongoing work, albeit I don't think we're going to come up with any new substantive findings. So thank you very much for the opportunity of talking it through.
Thank you very much, David. If you can stop sharing your screen.
Indeed.
Yeah, so on that note, thank you very much. You set up the conversation we are about to have in the near future, but also later today. And it's very interesting to see when the reports will come up for all of our audiences to review that and to once again dive deeply into the topics you just addressed this morning. So before we go to the in-depth discussion, I like to go back to the project of the Next Tourism Generation Alliance, which is the host of this webinar. So how do we make sure we focus on the right skills? We are going to start with sharing some more results of the Next Tourism Generation research. And I would like to invite Corné Dijkmans, who is managing the academic and applied research program of Breda University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands, and who led the skills assessment of this project. Corné, you were also listening to the opening speeches, and I just wondered, like the Commission was talking in the beginning about the Pact for Skills and a shared vision about that, opportunities and possible action points. So from the activities of the Next Tourism Generation Alliance research on digital, social and green skills gaps and future skills needs, what can you share from the skills assessment research in a project about the focus of skills development in the tourism sector, let's say 10 to 20 years from now, and even more on the short term? I would like to invite you to share some of your results.
Okay, thank you, Lopke, for giving me the opportunity to speak on this occasion. So let me share the screen with you, and I hope it's visible now. So yeah, as you already indicate, I think yeah, quite some very good contributions of the speakers so far. So this puts it a little bit in the context of what we have been doing in the Next Tourism Generation project, where we undertook some European-wide research into tourism skills gaps, and specifically for the digital, green and social skills. So what I will do today is share some outcomes and findings from the NTG research on this tourism skills needs. We did a large skills needs assessment, and we developed a skills assessment methodology, which is all, available to all via our website. I will talk about this later. And I will end my contribution with summarizing some effects of COVID-19 on the skills needs and gaps from an NTG perspective. So that's what I will do. So let me start with the NTG research into the tourism skills needs. As already pointed out by the previous speakers, there's a lot of changes going on in tourism, and not only in tourism, I would say in whole society, but not the least in tourism, with all the huge lockdowns and the survival mode of a lot of companies in the tourism industry throughout the world. And yeah, I would say what has been added to the context of tourism for the future is all these health safety measures that have come into effect above what we already saw so far before the pandemic, which was in the field of huge shifts in digital technologies, in changes in visitor demands and wishes, and in the green field in relation to sustainable tourism needs. And this will further be being strengthened by the effects of COVID that we see in the last year, of course. So as Sylvia already pointed out in the introduction, the NTG Tourism, the Next Tourism Generation Alliance is a cooperation of 14 partners of 8 countries. And we're aiming to improve in a structural way the relationship between education, governments, and industry to see where skills gaps are currently present in tourism and how we can bridge these skills gaps by building a structural mechanism to research this and to come up with modules to cover these skills gaps in digital, green, and social skills. So as already pointed out by Sylvia, we did this research and we do this whole NTG project in the frame of 5 subsectors within the tourism industry, as listed on this sheet. So accommodation, food and beverage operations, travel agencies, tour operators, destination management organizations, and visitor restrictions. And it is aimed at 3 types of skills: green, social, and digital skills. So that's the focus of our NTG Alliance project. And one of the first parts in the project that we did is we researched the tourism skills gaps and the industry needs for the future, let's say in about 10 years. And this was, of course, pre-pandemic when we undertook this survey, this desk research, and these interviews. So in total, we had 1,400 people participating in the survey. We did about 250 interviews with executives in tourism, and we did a large desk research study. And this all led to the outcomes that are available on the nexttourismgeneration.eu website, and to the tourism skills assessment methodology as it is available on the website as well. So some highlights from the survey. There is all the details are of course available in the reports available on the website. So as you can see, what we did on a scale of 1 to 5, we asked these 1,400 participants what they thought about all types of green skills, social skills, and digital skills, what the level is of the current needs of the workforce, and what they projected what the future skills of the workforce should be in about 10 years. And yeah, from this scales, we could calculate the gap, and of course the relative gap in all these fields. And as said, all the types of skills are listed in the reports. But as you can see from this table, that in the digital skills, as already pointed out by David in the previous presentation, the digital skills show the largest skills gaps, and there's quite a large gap to address and to bridge in the next coming years in relation to digital skills. But nevertheless, also in the green skills, which is about environment and sustainability, and the social skills, there are quite large gaps to bridge. Just to give you an impression, not to read out this whole sheet, of course, But we measured all kind of skills types, the current skills level and the projected future skills level, and then we could calculate the skills gap. And as you can see in this slide, the digital skills are in the top of the list of skills gaps, with skills gaps even up to 50 or 60% in comparison to the skills gap of the current workforce. When we have a look into the skills gaps per subsector, so for the 5 subsectors that we have in the project, then you can see that also in this, from this perspective, the digital skills show in general the largest skills gaps, especially in the destination management organization sector, but also the green skills and the social skills, they also show quite a skills gap that need to be addressed in the further steps that we shall take in the frame of the Next Tourism Generation Alliance. As said, all details are available on the website. And when you have a look at it in general, I think we can say that higher level of education levels in general are needed, which was also an outcome of the OECD study as presented a few minutes ago by David Parsons. There's a shift going on from mere jobs and professions to, I would say, learning and developing skills. So general skills and transversal skills are more important than tourism-specific skills. I think this is a general remark. So you can summarize this in high tech with a human touch. The tourism workforce needs to be aware of all these high tech, all these digitalization techniques, but in combination with the human touch, because tourism is a service industry, which means dealing with people and having empathy, emotional intelligence, etc. So we seek for a combination of these two things in the future of tourism. And the general understanding of digitization techniques such as artificial intelligence, virtual and augmented reality, and data analytics will be more necessary in the future of working in tourism. The second step in the research part of the Next Tourism Generation was that we developed a skills assessment methodology, also available on the website, which delivers a structural mechanism to get an overview in every country of existing skills gaps in the fields of green, social, and digital, and to develop ways on how to formulate strategies and policies on how to have responses to these skills gaps. And also this skills assessment methodology and this 6-step approach, as it is highlighted on this slide, are completely elaborated upon in the reports available on the site. So I recommend you to have a look at the site and have a look in these reports with all the details, of course. Then at the start of 2020, COVID-19 entered, and this put our project in some other perspective, of course, because we need to take this into account in the further steps that we need to develop now in the project. So what we did is we did some desk research and some research within our team of partners in the Next Tourism Generation Alliance to have a first idea, some first outlines of what the effects of COVID-19 will be on the skills needs for the future, for the short-term future, but also for the longer-term future. So what we did is we came with some ideas and advices in the green, social, and digital field on where to focus on and where the accents will be in the future in these fields. So let me start with the social skills field. As already mentioned, which was a general remark from our earlier research, that it will be even more important for students, for workers, for employees in the tourism sector to have these soft skills and to work on their transversal skills. So to be adaptive, to be flexible, to have critical thinking capabilities, to know how to cooperate, to be creative when certain things, such as COVID, of course, might happen, and how to deal with this. It's all about interpersonal skills. You need to have the right levels of emotional intelligence and empathy for your customers in your companies to help them with overcoming fear or anxiety, to deal with risk aversions and uncomfortable situations. And yeah, as a result of this, lifelong learning and continuous professional development will be a key component of the social skills that we foresee for the near future. A second one, as a result of COVID, is of course that more tourism employees need to be aware of all kind of basic health and sanitary risk awareness skills as part of their, I would say, the general skills to work in the tourism field. And also dealing with emergency and crisis management and communication will be even more important. So how to come up with reactions online, with press releases, with talking to consumers who are afraid or anxious, etc., is an important social skill as well. Looking at the digital skills, of course, David, he gave a lot of information already about these digital skills. On a practical level, I think having knowledge of modeling scenarios and simulations of how to deal with data, to transform these data into relevant services and products is even more important now as it was before the pandemic hit us at the start of 2020. So this is an important new digital skill that we foresee for the next future. And of course, as we are doing now in this online event, working with YouTube and with Zoom, having knowledge and skills on organizing online events and stimulate collaboration with distance working environment needs to be part of the competences of tourism workers for the future. To be able to deliver online and distant digital experiences, we think that the use of virtual reality, augmented reality, and artificial intelligence will be even more important, as we saw in the research as we did it in 2019, start of 2020, and being able to deal with online design and communication tools to give body to these experiences will be more important as well. Last but not least, with regard to the digital skills, there's a lot of information on social media, on the internet, on news sites, on Facebook and wherever. And we think that employees need to be able to deal with all these, I would say this overload on news, maybe even fake news, with online opinions, with reviews to see what's important and what's a little bit less important. To deal with this information overflow is an important skill as well, which is related to the digital field. Then, last but not least, the green skills. As we saw during the pandemic, everything has become a little bit more local or domestic. And we think that this will foster all kind of sustainable initiatives into tourism. So being able to work with all kind of circular economy skills to foster sustainability and green growth, and to see how local supply chains can help in an integration of tourism services and products will help tourism providers to support the tourism industry in the post-COVID effects that we will have in 2021 and the years after, of course. Another one that's important, which was already important before the pandemic as well, but will be more important now, but from maybe a completely different perspective, because now it's not about over tourism, but maybe now under tourism, is to find ways to deal with visitor flow monitoring, control and management, not from the perspective of over tourism, but also under tourism, in combination with what I already pointed out, big data and data analysis to feed into new tourism products and services. So this is just a general overview of the things that we think of as the NTG Alliance in relation to the green, social and digital skills. So thank you. As mentioned, Please follow us on the nexttourismgeneration.eu website, where we have all our public reports available for you. And please follow our social media channels as well for all the next steps that we are going to take with the Alliance. Thank you for listening to my contribution, and always feel free to contact me through the email address as visible on this slide. Going back to Lopke now. Lopke, thank you very much for having me here, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kone, for sharing the results in a very concrete way. Joining me now quickly to report back on us on the following action points to coordinate training priorities and developing tools to prevent skills gaps and anticipate on the future skills needs. I would like to invite Jane Rexworthy, Executive Director of People First International. Jane, let's over to you.
Thank you, Lopke, and hello to everyone. It's very good to be speaking to you today. Can I just check, Lopke, that you can see my slides?
I see your slides perfectly.
Excellent. So thank you very much for listening to me this morning. I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the work that we're doing right now that has been created from all of the research that's been undertaken so far. So we're leading on the development of the tourism sector skills toolkit, and this is going to be such a valuable tool to everyone going forward. The toolkit is being developed by a strong collaboration of our 8 countries and 14 partners. So everyone is involved in this process. And I just want to share with you, just in a few minutes, what the toolkit's going to cover. And so this summary slide just introduces the key areas. I'm going to talk about those in a little bit more detail in a moment. But firstly, to say that the tourism sector skills kit consists of a set of resources that are going to be able to be used by a number of different individuals. And so within the guidance toolkit, it can be used by educational establishments, training providers, employers, government departments and individuals to enable them to review the green, social and digital requirements within the hospitality and tourism sector, and also to use the toolkit to support them in developing and or updating their existing resources. So the guidance toolkits have been designed in conjunction with the online skills and competency matrix, and it's incorporated into the database to allow all users to access the guidance toolkits as they see fit. And the guidance toolkits have been developed around the 3 core skills areas, which we've just heard about: green, digital and social skills. They have a comprehensive examples of lesson plans, presentations and training resources, so that our partners are able to, and our industry is able to access these as they're developing their curriculum for the future. There's also assessments and marking schemes to ensure people have the competency to undertake roles in green, digital and social. There's the blended learning approaches, skills checkers, how to develop and the example job profiles, and also mapping documents that can be used by governmental departments responsible for standards to ensure that the green, digital and social skills are included. We'll have a number of case studies that are also going to share how this has been undertaken, and this will be across our partnerships. And of course, examples of best practice. So each of the guidance toolkits are going to show the skills, knowledge and attributes that are needed within each of the 3 core skills areas in green, digital and social skills. They're going to be broken down into basic operational level, higher for supervisory and management, and also executive levels across the 5 sectors. They include accommodation, food and beverage, travel agencies and tour operators, destination management, and visitor attraction. And so to take you to the next slides, I'm not going to go into huge detail, but just to say that from a mapping perspective, it will support government bodies, those responsible for developing standards, to map against existing training qualifications, job profiles, training needs analysis, job descriptions, responsibilities, tasks, etc., for the stakeholders to identify those skills, knowledge and behaviours that are already present and enable them to identify where the gaps are that need to be filled. In terms of developing curriculum, this will support and inform the development of curriculum and training programmes within a number of different educational establishments, training providers, directly through employers' training and HR departments. So should be very useful across the industry, regardless of size. And from a human resource framework perspective, it will support the development of job profiles, recruitment campaigns, development and training plans, and also show skills and knowledge requirements that may be required in order to progress within or move between sectors and roles. And finally, really importantly, is useful examples to contextualize the data that is there and give insight as to how the skills and knowledge can be used by training providers, employers, governments, and individuals. So that ends my slides. Thank you very much for listening. It's just an overview at this point, and I know that in the future we'll be sharing the full toolkit in the second quarter of next year.
Well, thanks to our NTG consortium partners on aligning that upskilling, reskilling, and reshaping training is vital for the future of the tourism sector. Joining me now to discuss this from an industry perspective, I'm very delighted to welcome Dr. Agne Vaktuviene, President of the Lithuanian Countryside Tourism Association and owner of the rural tourism homestead Provençales. Welcome. Cecilia Ciani, Director of Learning and Organizational Development at the headquarters of Danubius Hotel Group. Catherine Porter, who spent until June 2020 with Hilton and was the Director of Youth Strategy across Europe, Middle East and Africa, and fulfilled lots of other roles on tourism and hospitality boards. Recently joined the tech startup and virtual reality learning resources, which is proving to be hugely exciting, innovative and future-facing learning platform. Evelien Vos, Learning Partner and Team Lead Learning and Development within TUI Benelux. And Denise O'Leary, Assistant Head of School Hospitality Management and Tourism in the Technical University of Dublin, leading the development of the blueprint in name of the next tourism projects. A very warm welcome to all 5 of you, and ladies and gentlemen in the public. As I mentioned to you earlier in this panel, if you do have any questions, get them in as quickly as you can, as short as you can, toward the length if possible, so we can see at a glance what your question is and who it is for. And I try to squeeze them in later on. Let's dive straight in. And Evelien, if I could come to you perhaps first. We heard from the previous speeches about the immediate challenges, the importance and the impact that skills development has on this industry. But as we look further ahead, the previous speakers also talked about the vision, the transformation and the future of digital, social and green skills in tourism. We need to know where we are going. So for you, what are the key challenges to prepare for the tourism of tomorrow and beyond in the light of skills development and the key challenges to meet the opportunities? Because we tend to talk challenges, but often these are opportunities.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lopke. And that's a big question, isn't it? Well, to start with, what I always think about is never waste a good crisis. So we took the crisis within our TUI company to see it as an opportunity. So what kind of chances and opportunities do we see? And what kind of changes were already planned, and maybe what can we do to accelerate it? So we took that chance and we made it an opportunity. So we already had some very big changes planned for the whole TUI organization. So we will develop into this technical digital platform organization in the future. So we have a one platform company. So that asks for IT upskilling and reskilling, of course. But how do we support it from a people side of change? So from our learning and development department, we defined for within our TUI company for this moment 7 future skills. Well, we made progress and accelerated in developing the content, put it in our learning management system. But how do we go to our colleagues all over Europe? How do we approach them? So we made within Microsoft Teams our own learning community. And well, we reached a few thousand colleagues because of course we are a very big company. And everybody joined in this learning community and worked together in it. Everybody posted what they were doing. So if you talk about social skills combined with digital skills, for me, that was a really good example on how you can accelerate it and how you can combine the two, because it became social. But we did it in a digital way, of course. We posted also a lot of videos, content on the learning community, and we developed our own workshops, live workshops. Of course, it was a bit challenging to do it at the first time within Teams. Mm-hmm. Now we can see, and what I find the best is that we see people who were not working together are working together now, because we can reach them very easily. So we have now, colleagues from the retail, from our flight department, from tour operating, who are now together in a workshop online, just 1 hour or 2 hours. So we learn from each other. So, in combining those skills on a digital way, it's really accelerating it.
Yes.
Those future skills for us, I think I recognized a lot what Corné just said, what came from the research side. So within TUI, those 7 skills we defined for now is work in a solution-oriented manner, but also critical thinking. How do you, what's fake news, what's real, what are the right sources to use or what not. Creativity, of course, but creativity as a mindset also to break free from your own working and thinking patterns. So you can see chances and you can see opportunities, but also to take action on it, because, nice all these ideas, but creativity is also, take action.
Exactly.
Virtual team player is one of our biggest virtual, team player, but also in a virtual way. So how can you become a more virtual team player? And we see that it's, going very naturally now. We're going from working together only in our Belgium and Netherlands part. Now a lot of teams are working globally, and we work together with the Nordics and the south of Europe. And so that's accelerating a lot. Digital skills, of course, and we define it in, being digital and acting digital, because that's, for us, that's a difference. Like being digital is how to use all the digital tools. Mm-hmm. Acting digital is also changing a mindset. So
yes, exactly.
With the creativity and the critical thinking again. Yeah. And for us, the like social intelligence. So you can compare it to what you defined as the social skills as well. Okay. And is already in place, and is it finished? No, because it's an ongoing process, lifelong.
Yes.
Learning, still developing, and I think this crisis made us realize that it's okay. We have to be flexible with it. We have to be.
Indeed. We come back to that topic later. Thank you so much for sharing this already from TUI's side. Agne, can you complete the picture maybe from the perspective of your company? As I said, you are the owner and manager of the Rural Tourism Homestead Provençales. Are there any other challenges that we neglected that you want to highlight? And as well as the same question to you in the role as the president of the Lithuanian Countryside Tourism Association, which challenges in the short term and the long term do you see on digital, green and social skills development?
Okay, so as the rural tourism business, COVID situation highlighted the need to digitalization the most. The biggest challenges for us have become to receive guests without contact, how to receive payments without using cash, and also social skills. They become particularly relevant as the general stressful situation and conflicts with clients have become much more frequent. Speaking about Lithuanian Countryside Tourism Association and Lithuanian rural tourism homestead in general, we noticed an increased desire to learn in summer and in autumn when we have less visitors. So association organized online trainings. Most entrepreneurs wanted to learn things about digitalization again. And however, now that Lithuania is the first place in terms of the percentage of COVID patients, so we see that social skills training, conflict and crisis management are the most needed. Naturally, in the situation when businesses are thinking how to survive the green course and all the green problems, they are much more less interested.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Very interesting to hear that point of view as well as a small medium enterprise and also from the perspective of a bigger association. So Catherine, in terms of the challenges as we try to build a more digital, green and social skills oriented labor market in tourism, do you agree with what you have heard? Are there any other challenges you would like to add? And also, do you think those challenges have changed fundamentally because of COVID, or perhaps of COVID has accelerated and highlighted the most important ones? What is your opinion on that? Can you unmute yourself, please?
Thank you. Well, again, another big question. I don't think that they've fundamentally changed. I think we still have a need, of course, to build digital, green and social skills. I think what's changed is the priorities. So what are our short-term priorities and what are our longer-term priorities? The changes, of course, are driven by many things, and for our sector, hugely by the consumer expectation. And these are so diverse and have become more diverse. So if we think about the impact that COVID has had on, for example, our cleaning procedures, and it's just been referenced as basic sanitary and health risk skills. Wow, that's just a whole new skill area, and the importance of health and safety in particular, of course. So the diversity ranges from what are those now very, very important skills right through to expectations of our consumers to really have fully functional and interactive web presence, for example. So the shift in priorities on the back of COVID has highlighted the importance, certainly of the soft skills, and this has been talked about already this morning. So really around resilience and agility, and also the transferability of our soft skills and all our skills across the entire visitor economy sector, and really taking into account the increasing career path opportunities that we need to create due to the impact that COVID has had on our industry. So the need for digital, environmental, social skills has accelerated across all our job roles and across the sector. And as referenced previously, the need for SMEs, of course, in particular to keep up is crucial, literally, to their survival. So the responsibility for this, we've discussed already, sits in collaboration between governments, educators, communities, employers, social partners, individuals. And whilst that collaboration is key, what's also key is to have leaders to drive this. And I think this is where this particular project is great, and it's a great demonstration of that leadership. So my final couple of points is around curriculum and the importance of that curriculum development in relation to the skills that we're talking about, and the content of the core modules that have been talked about, and the content of the toolkit, which it sounds fabulous, that we've talked about, and that is really around the need to take into account the working population, which is, if we go back to what we're here to talk about, and who we're going to demonstrate these skills, because our working population, of course, spans over 5 generations, and that is, and includes very many diverse minority groups, which is what it makes our working population so fabulous. So therefore, the inclusivity with reference to everything that we're talking about today is key to make sure that we're reaching everybody.
Okay, thank you very much. Cecilia, can I ask you a very specific question in terms of skills development of the future? Are more resources needed for skills development, and does it mean remodeling opportunities for training? And in this moment, we can make a dramatic shift in thinking. Can you tell something from the perspective of the company of the Danubius Hotel Group?
Yes, Lopke, thank you for this very interesting question. And as you were asking specifically, I would like to mention 3 different topics, but all of that are under the umbrella of mindset change. And these maybe sound to be trivial, but looking back to 2020, this was the main practical thing that we needed to focus on. So the first element is the generalist approach. All people have been doing their tasks for years, for decades, and they could not imagine that they would do something different. For example, we had head waiters or chief stewards, but this year we needed more waiters or gardeners in our family resorts hotels, because we had domestic visitors there in the countryside. So if someone accepted this change in their task or change in their positions, we could offer jobs for them. So this positive attitude and ability of learning gave them, and for us as well, the benefit. The second one of the mindset change is the ability of moving among our hotels, even among different brands or franchise chains. Earlier, this was not a habit. So if somebody was hired to Hilton or Radisson, for example, they stayed at Hilton during their whole employment period. Now people accept if they are needed in a different hotel, then we load our workforce where we need them the most. Even more, we became much more one big team, one big family, and a more resilient team. And the third thing that I would like to mention, which is a very special thing in Hungary, that people are soil bonded, really not comfortable with mobilization within the country. Most people do not even like to move within the capital area as well. But this year's demand required us that we needed to transfer workers from one location to another. There were a lot of discussions and tasks to solve around this. And thanks to our leaders, we succeeded with this, and employees got used to it. But again, as Catherine mentioned already, our leaders were the key to this, and this is how we could succeed this year.
Yeah, thank you so much for stating out why the perspective of the human being and the human capital in the organization is so important, the flexibility of them. Evelien, in terms of investment for upskilling tourism workers across the whole value chain, which of course TUI is involved in, and support lifelong learning, what are the investments on these issues and skills development for the future, and also the future of work in tourism? We got a question from Anna Bolengo. She has asked, training also provides benefits in terms of networking. How is this being addressed in a virtual context? Can you tell us something about this?
About networking in a virtual context?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I can give the example of how we do it within our TUI organization. So we use the digital tools which are accessible to it. So Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever. And we do all these kinds of well, innovative things. Sometimes we have like chat roulettes or coffee roulettes. So you don't know who you're gonna drink coffee with, because we miss drinking coffee, at the coffee machine. We miss those informal collaborations. So now we have like we organize it that you don't know who you're gonna meet from your colleagues. So you're in the Zoom session or in the team session, and I'm with colleagues from all over the TUI organization. So it's also networking, because those informal meetings are sometimes the meetings where you have, you acquire the most knowledge. So how can we develop that, or how can we be innovative in that way? So I guess networking is just what it can deliver you. It's the same, but the way you do it is different. And I think if you start, just do it, see what tools are available for you, and make an agreement on what tools you use. I think that's also very important, because there are so many tools now at the moment. So what is going to be your network tool? And for us,
Yes.
we use Teams as a global networking tool, but you can also use different ones.
Yeah, and in terms of investment for upskilling your tourism workers, what are you focusing on the long and short term? Very briefly, can you tell us something about that? Very short.
Investment, well, we invest in our people, of course, so in upskilling our people. So now we are developing all the content to help support every colleague in those 7 defined future skills. And it's a modular system. So for me, it's maybe different than for you, and what kind of skills you need, where the gap is for you. So in that way, we invest in our people at the moment. And for the future, it will become only, I guess, my guess is that it will only become more global, and also more influence from external trainers, for example, but in a virtual way. So not the 1 day live workshops anymore, but just 1 hour, 2 hours. That's it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. In terms of the perspective of skills development, Cecilia, are you concerned about the long-term COVID impact on the sector and the skills needed? And what do you think is needed to bring the transition to improve skills for the benefits of tourists and guests on those digital, social, and green skills? And to address also a question from the audience, do you think we will be able to forget everything in the future and go back to how we were bringing services? Or is this changed all the tourism system forever? What is your opinion on that, Cecilia?
Well, this year will pass away, so but the change will change all of us and all the services and everybody. I don't think that we will go back to the really same services what we have in the previous years. We obviously need to change. For example, we have COVID protocols, so different service at the restaurants or with the cleaning staff. So we will use these protocols in the future as well. So we need to acclimatize ourselves, even the service provider and the guests as well. They don't like to wear masks, for example, in the public areas of the hotels, but now we get used to it and everybody uses those. And I forgot what was the beginning of the question.
No, I think you answered this perfectly. It was mostly as well as what do you think the impact of COVID will be on the sector and skills development? But I think you answered this perfectly for the near future in any way. Yeah, we are almost at the end of this panel and also running out of the time of the webinar. But I have one really important question to ask still. And Agnea, I want to start with you. as being an owner of a small, medium enterprise. So when we say, okay, the ecosystem of tourism might be changed, we need to rethink skills, we need to rethink talent. From policymakers, what is needed? To start with you, what is needed to bring the transition in a more skills-focused labor markets, from your perspective?
Clearly, the need for new skills will be best driven by the changing market itself. Customer needs are changing, and those who fail to meet them will have to close. To prevent this from happening, skills will need to be developed. I'm not even sure it is what interfering with the state institutions here. If people don't want to learn, to change, don't force them. The state should only provide opportunities to adopt to change. Even in the same sorting of garbage, many homesteads would like to do this, but there are no opportunities everywhere. And if the need for the new professionals arises, it should contribute to their training. Decision makers would have to foresee, to prepare for, or at least to react quickly to market changes and to help to adopt them.
Thank you so much for hearing this. And I'm sure we still can hear so much more during this panel, but before we need to close off, I want to turn very quickly to Denise O'Leary, because Denise, we talked about the perspective of skills development during COVID, post-COVID, as well as how optimistic or pessimistic the scenarios will be. But can you give us very briefly the idea, where do we need to start from here? So who needs to do what if we meet these challenges and seize these moments of opportunity to a more digital, social and green labor market in terms of collaboration across the EU? Can you give your perspective and your idea very shortly?
Sure, thanks, Lubka. I think we've heard about it already in terms of the Pact for Skills, and Catherine already referred to it, that collaboration is key. So, I mean, my vision for skills development in the European Union moving forward is that it's built on a strong foundation of collaboration. And when you talk about who needs to be involved, it needs to be everybody. It needs to be government, industry, and education. And what that means, stronger links between education and industry in addressing skills needs, and more industry and education involvement in policy development. So I suppose we're working to achieve that within the NTG project. And we heard about the Commission, how the Commission is working to achieve that as well. But I think that it's really important that the three different sectors, education, industry, and government, work closely together to support each other, to ensure that we overcome the current barriers and that we end up with an industry that's stronger, more vibrant, more able to adjust to situations like this, and a sustainable industry. So where any new skills that might arise in the future, that those skills needs are met smoothly and effectively through that effective collaboration.
Thank you so much for this brief summary. I see there are a lot more questions coming in from the chat, and we also had a lot more questions for our panelists. And we will make sure that we answer them still. So we are going to provide some more content with these expert panelists. During the coming weeks, we are providing an interview, or we think about another webinar on this topic. So before I end this officially, I want to thank our panelists very much. Thanks so much for our closing panel, for their contributions and to identify some of the answers already. I'd like to thank all the speakers for their contributions that are giving input on the debate, how the Pact for Skills in Tourism could look like. I also like to thank our colleagues and their stunning work in a technical way who are not visible, but organizing everything behind the screens, filtering all those messages. And of course, I'd like to thank you, the audience. Thank you for giving us your inputs, your thoughts, your comments, and your feedback, and what you see as important as we go forward, or what you consider as important. I want to thank you for your questions, your comments, and may I just end with wishing you a very pleasant closure of 2020 and an even more resilient 2021. So stay safe, goodbye, and we keep in touch. Thanks.